thought I'd start at the beginning. Where do you start when approaching a painting or linocut in your thought process?
Well, it's a lot of, it's finding the right subject matter to start with. For instance, this one is Ramsgate, which is a slipway I worked on about 30 years ago. I took lots of photographs and intending to do a linocut, and I've only got round to it now.
Wow, it's very detailed. So what do you start with, drawing it out on the linocut?
Yeah, I mean, I've obviously lots of photographs, and often when I'm taking photographs, I mean, these are so long ago, but I've got a sort of idea of what kind of view I want, and usually they're not straight from a photograph. It's a combination of half a dozen photographs.
Yeah.
And usually kind of viewpoint that's fairly impossible, just to make life difficult for myself.
You've got lots of detail in here, like the bricks. So do you think, right, I'm going to approach the bricks like this?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, these ones, doing the stone harbours in Fife, I kind of worked out a way of doing stonework, and so one print will lead to another one, and if I find a good way of doing the water or the sky.
Yes, I noticed you started doing the water in swirly bit, your more recent linocuts, which is rather nice. Yeah. So with your thought process, is it very different between your paintings and your linocuts?
Yeah, increasingly so. I mean, when I started, I would paint in the morning and linocut in the afternoon, and quite often the linocuts would be versions of my paintings.
Oh wow!
And but now although they're boats, and the linocuts are very much the boats in their environment, and the paintings are the boats taken out of their environment, really.
Yes.
And the thought process is so different. I find it harder and harder to switch backwards and forwards. So I tend to have a block of linocutting. I mean, I've been linocutting since Christmas, and I'm just about preparing canvases to start painting.
Are you chomping at the bit to switch over, or a bit scared?
I am a little bit. I mean, I would like to get this one a little bit further ahead before I leave it. But it's quite often quite good to get the linocut to a certain point and put it to one side. You can forget some of the sort of technical things and sort of see it freshly and concentrate on the composition.
Well, you now have a different studio for linocut and painting, so that probably makes a bit of difference.
It does help to have that differential. I mean, all the presses are in another place. This is really the front part of my painting studio, which I've taken over for sitting here and linocutting.
Your paintings are more about how the light hits, and they sort of have personalities, your boats, don't they? Almost like they're portraits of the boats.
I think more and more they become that. The colour and the surface has become more and more important to me in them. They're less about, I mean, they're partly about the boat of a particular place and of a certain style, but they're more and more, the bit that interests me is the painting of them, the surface.
Yeah,
and
that's
the
what
colour.
I was going to come to. What keeps you motivated?
I think it is that. I mean, colour is infinite. The infinite variety, discovering. I mean, I'm very into using indigo in everything, and a little bit of Naples yellow with indigo makes it slightly greeny blue, and white will make it a bluey.
Yes, you keep your colours sort of quite tight.
And that's exciting, and every time. It's a bit like with the lino, where I'm getting a sort of vocabulary of marks. With the painting, there's always new things to discover with, how the paint's put on, or the colours.
Yeah.
I mean, so that's the bit that excites it. If I can find something like that in a picture.
Colour or texture. Yeah.
I mean, in this one, this is a pretty sort of technical kind of viewpoint, back straight on the backway with the slipway and all the.
They're quite polar opposites, really, with the lino and the lines and the paintings with the texture and the colour. That probably keeps it fresh.
Yeah, and I mean, one thing I don't do, is I don't do a drawing, reverse it, and then transfer it to the lino. I'm drawing on the lino, and there's still even though I've cut half of this.
So you can see back to front.
Yeah. as comes naturally to a dyslexic, although I still get in the muddle sometimes.
Do you hold up a mirror to it sometimes? Or you don't even need to do that?
Not really. I mean, I've started reversing photographs on the computer, and
That's a good idea.
that although the other day I'd reversed a photograph and then I drew it the other way around, thinking I hadn't done that, so I reversed it back again. But I did on one occasion do a whole painting back to front, and it was only when I looked at what I was working from I realised I'd done it. I did it perfectly automatically, you know. But reversing things allows you to see things slightly freshly, and you can move things around a bit more, rather than sort of being seduced by the photograph.
Yes, yes. Do you normally have to go through a phase of disliking an artwork before you finished it to feel that you've accomplished something?
With the linos, there's definitely a pain barrier.
It looks so complicated.
I mean, 3 months of cutting away can get quite tedious.
Does each lino cut take about 3 months?
Yeah, I think the longest was Hastings, which took me 4 months.
In a lot of your lino cuts in particular, I see how it feels historical, and you seem to capture how the past meets the present. Is that something you relate to?
Well, a lot of the titles are like past and present.
True, that's a clue.
So, and like a memory isn't like a photograph. Memory isn't a moment in time.
It's like the essence of something.
It's a combination. It's a compacting of memory. So
do you just come to it naturally, how it all sort of fits together, and then that sort of...
I think there's things I want to put in and there's things I want to leave out. If there's a particularly ugly building somewhere, like, for instance, Falmouth there, I put a house back that had been demolished about 20 years ago because I just liked the idea of this little house all on its own on the quay, and boats that have long gone, put them back in the harbour. I mean, that harbour's now full of plastic tenders, and I'm thinking, wouldn't it be great to see proper traditional boats in there? So I can do that,
And do you think that you trained as a shipwright, a boat builder, helped a lot with the boats, or is it just the inspiration of boats? You just seem to love them.
I think for any artist, it's good to make their work about something they really know about.
Yeah.
I mean, Stubbs took a horse to pieces, literally, and I mean, one of my favourite paintings is Whistle Jacket, which is where he painted the horse for somebody else to paint the king sitting on it, and that never happened.
Oh.
And so you've got this beautifully painted horse sort of rearing up against this very dry, sort of Payne's grey background, and it's a bit like my boats floating in a space, but he obviously knew every inch of a horse.
Yeah,
and
you must know every inch of these boats.
Knowing how a boat is put together and what's important, what's not. And
you have a lot of people that are big sailors who like your work, and they would certainly like to point things out, I know, with boats if anything's wrong.
Yes.
Which they don't do of yours, of course.
Well, sometimes I have a little boat builder sitting on my shoulder saying, it's not quite right. And I have to sort of pat him down every now and again.
Yeah, saying besides, you've done a couple of small paintings then, there.
Yes, the Venetian boats. Yeah, I mean, I resisted doing small boats for some time because I thought that it's all about the size. And
they've got a sort of lighter touch, haven't they, those ones, which is rather nice.
I think that there's somewhere that's really small or really big, and sort of in between is difficult for some reason.
Yes, I appreciate that.
You have to stylise in a way.
But I like the way you've just got a light touch on those, and they seem much more delicate, and the thickness of the paint is thinner, isn't it?
Well, those are on board, which is quite different from painting on canvas.
Yeah, so you have to use thinner paint, I suppose.
Yeah, I guess so, and there's a lot of scraping off of paint, and that behaves differently on board. I mean, you can physically take a bit of sandpaper to the mat and things like that.
And you can get too involved in that, can't you?
Well, I
mean,
mean,
you don't.
Unlike the Linocuts, the paintings you can endlessly go back to and work on and rework and change.
Do you know when a painting's finished though, or not quite?
I quite often I stop when I start making mistakes, but there's a whole batch of paintings come back from London recently, and I've seen them freshly, and I thought, oh yeah, I can do some more on that, and especially this new technique of putting the paint on with a builder's trowel, pointing trowel. The build-up of paint, the more you put on, the more interesting it becomes. So really, they do benefit from more work.
Yeah, they're a mixture, aren't they, of using paintbrush and sort of like a trowel, which is sort of like a palette knife, I guess, is it? But a big one.
Yeah, yeah.
So you get sort of the rustic feeling of boats and boatyards, and then there's sort of calmness of
Yeah,
boats.
I mean, I do like old boats. I don't want, there was a boat I saw on the internet, and I got in touch with the owner and said, your boat's in just the right stage, how I like it, all the paint scraped off, you could see all the planks. And I said, can I come and see you next time I'm down in Cornwall? He said, yeah. So by the time I got it all painted and all smooth and shiny, and I said, but as a proud boat owner, he didn't want anyone to see it.
Yeah.
Not, looking beautiful in his eyes, but to me, I wanted to see the structure.
Yes.
I like to do boats when they're sort of half built, because you can still see the structure once the cabin is in.
Well, they're very dynamic. You make it very dynamic, don't you? Like that one. What's the title of that one?
Essex Mag.
Mag.
Yeah, I mean that one. That they haven't put the deck on yet, so the light's coming down through the deck beams. And once the deck is on, that'll be a dark little corner that you find very hard to see. Yeah, that one.
It is beautiful, the sort of shapes and lines, isn't it? Well, Jamie, I think we've learned a lot today. Thank you.
Well,
that helps us. Hayletts Gallery has become a virtual gallery, so hopefully it's been informative, and maybe we'll do some more in the future.
Yeah, I think people like to see, the artist and the way they work, and I think it is a whole new dimension to what you can do really as a gallery. Thank you for your time, and thank you, You're most welcome.
Mary, for filming.